Here's our question. What is PBIS? Picture this. Jerry, Patricia, and Martha are all students in my 7th grade social studies class. During a short observation, you notice Jerry working well with his friends. He goofs off a little bit, but they quickly refocus. However, you notice our other 2 students acting much differently. Patricia, who finished her work quickly, starts showing off to her group and blurts out answers without being called on. It doesn't take long before you notice Martha, who is in Patricia's group, becoming visibly frustrated. After a few minutes, she snaps at Patricia, and it quickly escalates into an argument. There are 2 important takeaways from this scenario. First, if you didn't know better, you'd probably give Patricia and Martha a whole list of labels that they don't necessarily deserve. You might say they're difficult students, or you might focus more on the behavior than on the student themselves. Secondly, this situation would have played out much differently if it had taken place in an environment that had implemented PBIS. So, what exactly is PBIS? The acronym stands for Positive Behavior and Intervention Support. It's an evidence-based, tiered system that is used to create and maintain positive classroom environments and model appropriate student behavior. Let's break that down further. Tier 1 support is provided at the classroom level. That means that all students benefit from these practices. The goals of Tier 1 supports are to teach and encourage positive and appropriate student behavior and to prevent unwanted behaviors before they occur. For classroom teachers, this involves practices that you should be doing anyway, like establishing classroom rules and teaching procedures so that your students know how they are expected to behave. Tier 1 supports also include classroom interventions like proximity control, positive narration, group contingencies, simple ways of reminding students how they should be behaving and acknowledging when they are acting appropriately. For 80% of students, Tier 1 support is enough to encourage positive behavior. If we go back to our earlier scenario, Jerry is part of that 80%. He likes to joke around with his friends during group work, but a quick reminder of classroom rules is enough to get him to refocus on social studies. But for some students, Tier 1 alone is not enough. Tier 2 support is more intensive. It involves specialized interventions for those learners whose behaviors may put them at risk for academic or social failure. These interventions are different depending on the specialized needs of the student. These interventions could include regular check-ins, small group counseling, increased adult supervision, access to academic support, basically whatever the student needs to be successful. Tier 2 focuses largely on the function of the student's behavior. In order to choose appropriate interventions, we need to know what is causing a student to act a particular way. Patricia, for instance, needs Tier 2 support. She is a gifted reader, which allows her to excel at social studies. Her teacher recognizes that she needs more of a challenge and that she usually blurts out answers when she's bored. She is unaware that her comments are disruptive and that she bothers other students, and she needs to work one-on-one with her teacher to break that habit. In addition to supplementing Patricia's schoolwork so she's appropriately challenged, her teachers begin to praise Patricia when she raises her hand. This positive reinforcement encourages Patricia to continue this behavior. Both in the social studies classroom and throughout the school day. That brings us to Tier 3, which, surprise, offers even more intense levels of support. This tier is for the 1 to 5% of students who need more individualized support than can be offered at the earlier tiers. These strategies are often used for students with developmental disabilities or emotional or behavioral disorders, but can also be needed for students without a specific diagnosis. Assuming the kind of support a student needs based on their disability classification would be a mistake. Actually, assuming anything about your students would be a mistake. It's important to remember here that they're all individuals. Students at this tier work with a multidisciplinary team that can include teachers, parents, coaches, behavior specialists, Essentially, any individuals that work closely with the student and are experienced with their behavior. The multidisciplinary team is responsible for conducting a functional behavior assessment, or an FBA, to determine why the student is acting the way that they do. From there, the team creates a behavior intervention plan, sometimes called a BIP, to remediate the problematic behavior. When implemented consistently and with fidelity from all teachers and staff members, behavior intervention plans and other Tier 3 supports have the power to transform student behavior because they look beyond the behavior to the underlying factors. On the surface, Martha might seem like a difficult student, just loud and rude. However, context is everything. Martha has a learning disability that makes reading difficult for her. She also struggles to control her emotions, and it's not uncommon for her to lash out at her peers when she's frustrated by schoolwork. The multidisciplinary team that works with Martha recognizes this and develops an intervention to help Martha. Martha is an active student, and the multidisciplinary team learns from her coaches that she's often much calmer after she's burned off some energy. The team decides that when Martha feels herself getting angry and close to lashing out at a peer, she can signal to her teacher, at which time she can take a 1 or 2 minute break to power walk down the hall or up the stairs. This is usually enough for Martha to calm down, prevents a full-on argument in class like we saw earlier, and begins to teach Martha how to regulate her own emotions. This way, she can go back to class and be a full participant. It's because of these situations that PBIS is essential to creating a positive and successful classroom environment. This is a system based on equity, not equality. Students are not created equally. They're individuals. If we treated Jerry, Patricia, and Martha equally, they would not have the support they need to be successful. But by treating them equitably, they are each more likely to be engaged and successful students, both academically and behaviorally. As teachers, we all have a lot of academic goals for our students, and they are all very important. But it's important to recognize that students cannot reach those academic goals unless they are in a positive environment that encourages learning for all students. By identifying our students' individual needs and supporting them appropriately, we can create those environments. By implementing positive behavior and intervention supports, we can reach all of our kids, create positive classrooms, and set our students on the best course for success.